Parents, what do your kids think they're hiding from you? My 14-year-old daughter thinks she's been secretly dating a boy from her class for the past 3 months. Every Thursday after school, she tells me she's studying at the library, but instead goes to the ice cream shop across the street to meet him. The first time I found out was completely by accident. I was picking up my coffee from the shop next door when I spotted her sharing a banana split with this red-headed kid, both of them giggling and awkwardly avoiding eye contact. It was honestly adorable. Instead of confronting her, I decided to play along. I wanted to see how far she'd go with this secret. The next Thursday, she casually mentioned studying at the library again. I watched her fix her hair 3 times before leaving and apply the lip gloss I didn't know she owned. That's when I started having fun with it. Every Thursday morning, I'd leave an extra $10 on the counter, pretending to forget my coffee money. She'd snatch it up when she thought I wasn't looking, probably thinking she'd hit the jackpot. I also started making comments about the ice cream shop just to watch her squirm. You know that place has the best banana splits in town, I'd say. During dinner, she'd nearly choke on her food while her younger brother would look at her weird. Once I even walked into the ice cream shop while they were there. The panic on her face was priceless. She ducked under the table so fast she knocked over their milkshake. The poor boy just sat there covered in vanilla shake, looking absolutely terrified. I pretended not to notice and ordered my ice cream to go. The best part was watching her try to explain why she smelled like vanilla when she got home. The library got new air fresheners, she said, completely straight-faced. I nodded seriously and said, must be expensive ones. They smelled just like the ice cream shop's homemade vanilla. She started getting creative with her cover-ups. She'd bring old library books from her room to show me what she'd checked out. Once she even made a fake library card that looked like it was made with construction paper and clear tape. The funniest incident was when she came home with ice cream stains on her shirt. Without missing a beat, she launched into this elaborate story about how someone at the library had smuggled in a sundae and spilled it. You wouldn't believe how strict they are about food in there. Now, Mom, she said earnestly, I decided to step up my game. I started leaving brochures for the ice cream shop on the kitchen table. They're having a Thursday special. I'd mention casually, buy 1 banana split, get another half off. Perfect for studying sessions. She'd get this deer in headlights look every time, but would quickly recover. That's nice, she'd say, voice slightly higher than normal. But you know I'm lactose intolerant. She's never been lactose intolerant in her life. Last week, she came home with a permission slip for a library study group that meets every Thursday. The form looked suspiciously like it was written in the same handwriting as her English homework. I signed it without comment, watching her try to hide her victorious smile. Yesterday was the cherry on top. I ran into the boy's mother at the grocery store. Before I could say anything, she launched into this whole story about how her son is finally taking his studies seriously with his Thursday library sessions. We both kept straight faces, but I could see her trying not to laugh. I'm still waiting for my daughter to come clean. Meanwhile, I've started a collection of all her fake permission slips, library cards, and elaborate excuses. I plan to frame them and give them to her on her wedding day. Maybe by then she'll finally admit that the library's new air fresheners were actually just ice cream all along. But the real kicker? Last night at dinner, she casually mentioned that the library is thinking of installing an ice cream vending machine. You know, for brain food, she explained. Seriously, I nearly spit out my drink. At that moment, I held back my laughter with all my strength. I looked at the plate, then at the glass, made a thoughtful expression, and responded as if I were seriously considering, an ice cream machine in the library? Now that's academic innovation. She nodded seriously, as if defending the proposal before an international scientific committee. It's just that studies show that sugar helps keep the brain active. I almost stood up and applauded. The confidence, the audacity, the dramatic delivery. Everything so genuine that for a second, I swear, I almost believed she was telling the truth. But then I remembered the banana split from last week and the shirt with the strawberry syrup stain that a library colleague had accidentally spilled. Ah, my daughter, what a delicious phase. That night, after she went to her room, I stayed in the living room looking at the cabinet where I keep the family documents. I took a small blue plastic folder and began putting inside all the confidential files I had been collecting. Fake library cards, receipts from the ice cream parlor that I found in her coat pocket, the pamphlets I strategically scattered myself. Even the stained shirt was there, neatly folded. I was creating a dossier. The case of the scented library, as I began to call it mentally. But that night, something left me restless. It wasn't just the new lie, creativity, about the ice cream machine. It was the way she talked about the boy. I mean, she didn't mention him directly, of course, but the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about the importance of sharing a sweet treat during study sessions, that caught me. I lay in bed thinking, how long will I let her play hide and seek with me? Of course it's fun, of course it's cute, but what if someday it isn't? What if one day the secret is something more serious? What if she doesn't feel safe telling me because she thinks I'll laugh or pretend I didn't see? This doubt kept hammering in my head. As a mother, I want her to feel free, but I also want her to know she can trust me, really trust me, not just as a spectator of her little theater. The next morning, I made stronger coffee than usual and sat staring at my daughter eating cereal, completely calm, as if the library were indeed the most exciting place in town on Thursdays. "Sleep well?" I asked. She nodded, mouth full of cereal. "Any news from the library?" She paused for a second, just 1 second, and answered, "They're thinking about starting a reading club just for books about desserts." I raised my eyebrows. "Like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?" "Exactly. And one about cupcakes, too." I smiled. She smiled back. And that's when I decided that maybe it was time to change the rules of the game. But not the way you imagine. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't ruin the magic. I wouldn't have that typical concerned mother meeting. At least, not yet. I would infiltrate. Next Thursday, I wouldn't just be the mother who pretends not to see. I would be part of the story. And that's exactly what I did. The idea started as a joke, but like all good mother jokes, it soon transformed into a CIA-level espionage operation. The following Thursday, I planned everything. I left work early, said I was going to the market, which technically was true, and wore basic, discreet clothes, something that wouldn't attract attention. Old jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, and a cap I took from my husband's closet. Hair tied back, oversized sunglasses. If anyone asked, I could easily say I was a distant cousin visiting the city. I parked far from the ice cream parlor, far enough not to raise suspicions, and waited. My heart was racing, as if I were a teenager plotting some mischief. It was kind of ridiculous, I know, but it was also exciting. And then at 4:17 p.m., there she was. My daughter left school with her backpack over her shoulder and her hair loose, with those wavy ends that only appear when she uses the curling iron in secret. She walked looking at her phone as if responding to an important message. She crossed the street, looked around like a junior spy in training, and entered the ice cream parlor. About 5 minutes later, the boy appeared. Red-headed, skinny, somewhat awkward, carrying a backpack bigger than himself. He wore a Spider-Man t-shirt and seemed absolutely oblivious to my daughter's disguise. I smiled. They were indeed cute together. I entered discreetly and sat at a table in the back, behind a pillar decorated with colorful ice cream cone stickers. From there, I could see them without being seen. They ordered the usual. Banana split, 2 spoons. And they started talking. It was the kind of conversation that only teenagers have. Half nervous, half enchanted. She laughed more than normal. He fumbled with his napkin. At one point, he wiped the corner of her mouth with his fingertips, and they both turned red as tomatoes. That gave me a pang in my chest. Not of concern. It was something else. Perhaps it was the fact that she was growing up, that she was in love even if she didn't know it yet. That this strange and gentle boy had become a part of her secret world, a world in which, until now, I only peeked through the crack in the door. I took a mental picture of that scene, and more than that, I felt that I needed to keep that moment as a reminder that my daughter wasn't just mine anymore. The afternoon passed quickly. They ate, laughed, and then walked slowly down the sidewalk. Suddenly, he held out his hand, and she took it. I almost spilled my milkshake. I waited a while before leaving without them seeing me. When I got home, she was already in her room, probably rehearsing some new excuse for the ice cream smell that the library was testing in the new lockers. But I didn't say anything. I just left a small box on her bed before leaving the room. Inside was a silver ice cream spoon, one of those I bought some time ago in a vintage shop, and a handwritten note, "For your Thursday studies. Love always, Mom." That night, she didn't say anything. But the next day, I found the note carefully folded inside her pencil case, and the spoon attached to the ring of her backpack, next to a heart-shaped keychain. And that's when I realized she knew that I knew, and yet she was still trying to maintain the secret, as if this game between us was the last remnant of childhood, as if admitting everything would end a phase that, deep down, neither of us wanted to leave behind so soon. But the game was far from over. The following week, everything changed, and not because of me. The following week, she arrived home earlier than usual. She didn't have time to hide the ice cream smell or the small chocolate stain on her jeans. She threw her backpack on the couch, went straight to her room, and closed the door with more force than usual. That wasn't typical. Nothing in her expression, or in the hurried way she avoided any conversation, seemed part of our weekly little theater. I let it go. I waited for dinner time. She came down quietly, ate quickly, and excused herself. She didn't even comment on the library news or mention the installation of ice cream cone-shaped fans that she had invented last Thursday. But what really caught me was her look. It wasn't of shock, not of guilt. It was of disappointment. After she went upstairs, I went to the laundry room, where she sometimes left the day's clothes thrown, and found the stained jeans. I put my hand in the pocket and pulled out a folded napkin with the ice cream parlor's logo. It was written, "It was nice while it lasted. But my mom found out. I'm sorry. Jay." I stood there for a while looking at that, the thin paper in my hands as if it weighed tons. My heart sank. The boy broke up with her. And more than that, he broke up because his mother found out. Suddenly, all those Thursdays stopped being just a game. They were real memories, things that now really hurt her. I am a mother, and mothers feel. They feel when the world spins a little slower for our children, when the pain isn't physical but lives there, in the silences, in the downcast eyes, in the way of saying, "I'm fine," without lifting your eyes. The next day, she didn't want to go to school. She invented a headache, the kind that no aspirin resolves. She spent the whole day in her room with her phone turned off and the windows closed. I respected her space, but my heart was screaming. On Friday night, as I was washing the dishes, she appeared in the kitchen in silence. She stood there leaning against the door, like someone who didn't know whether to enter or go back to her room. "Mom?" I turned around. "Yes, honey?" She looked at the floor, then at me. "Have you ever had a friend who stopped being your friend because his mother didn't like you?" That cut me. If I said yes, she might think it was normal. If I said no, she might feel even more alone. So I was honest. I've had people who drifted away from me. We don't always understand the reason, but the pain is real all the same. She nodded slowly, her eyes shining but not crying. At least not yet. He said he liked me, that he would defend me. But when his mother saw us at the ice cream parlor, she forbade it. She said I was precocious, and that girls like that are no good. I felt my blood boil, not at him, a 14-year-old boy, but at this woman who judged my daughter without even knowing her, who tainted something beautiful with cheap prejudice. I took a deep breath. You are an amazing girl, and the problem isn't with you. It's in the small-minded vision of someone who can't see beyond an ice cream cone and a smile. She shook her head in silence, then smiled weakly. I thought I could hide this from you forever. And I thought I could play spy without ever having to sit down and talk for real. We laughed finally. She came closer and hugged me tightly. A hug that said more than any library lie or any vanilla smell. And I knew, in that instant, that something between us had changed. The secret was over. But in its place, something even more precious was born: trust. In the days that followed, silence gave way to a new routine. Fewer disguises, fewer little acts, more honesty. Not that she had transformed into a teenager who tells everything, of course. That would be utopian. But for the first time in a long time, I felt that she left cracks open through which I could peek, no longer hidden, but invited. The following Monday, when I returned from work, I found a scene that made me stop at the kitchen door. She was sitting at the table, a pile of open books, headphones on, and a bowl of vanilla ice cream. Without fear, without excuses, without lies. I stood watching for a moment. When she noticed my presence, she removed one earphone and said, "Studying for real, okay? You can check. And with a well-fed brain, I see," I replied, smiling. She gave a short laugh and continued highlighting the text in front of her. It was as if we were in a new silent agreement. Now that the truth was on the table, there was no more need for dramatizations. Or at least, that's what I thought. That night, while washing dishes, I received a notification on my phone. It was a message from the boy's mother. Yes, from her. "Good evening. This is Teresa, Jonas's mother. Can we talk, if possible?" My first impulse was to delete the message, but something in me, perhaps the adult part that I still try to cultivate, decided to respond. We arranged to meet the following afternoon. She suggested a discreet cafe away from school. When I arrived, she was already there, serious, stirring the sugar with more force than necessary. "Thank you for coming," she said, as soon as I sat down. "Of course," I imagine it's about our children, she nodded, but took some time before speaking. My son is devastated. He says he made a mistake, and I think maybe I made one too. I waited. The truth is that when I saw the two of them together at the ice cream parlor, I didn't see two innocent teenagers. I saw problems. I saw the possibility of my son going astray, of getting involved too early, of repeating mistakes that I myself made. That caught me off guard. You were a young mother? She hesitated, then nodded. At 15, I was kicked out of home. I spent years trying to prove that I deserved to come back, and even today I carry that weight. I don't want my son to follow the same path. I took a deep breath. Her judgment had been born from fear, not from malice. I understand your concern, but your response was harsh, and it affected a girl who was just discovering what it's like to like someone. She lowered her gaze, stirring the cold coffee. I know that now, and I'm ashamed. I just don't know how to fix it. He told me he wants to talk to her, but I don't know if I should allow it. Maybe it's not a question of allowing, I replied. Maybe it's about accompanying, guiding, and trusting that they will make mistakes, yes, but also learn, like us. She looked at me as if seeing someone for the first time, a less defensive, more human look. Can I send a message? She asked, almost like a child asking for forgiveness. You can, but not to me. Talk to her. Or better yet, let him talk, and be nearby when she decides whether she'll listen. I went home with a light heart. For the first time, I felt like I was on the right side of this story. Not as a spy, not as an adversary, but as a mother. Later, at dinner, my daughter received a notification on her phone. She pretended not to see it immediately, but after 2 minutes, she couldn't stand it and read it. Her eyes sparkled. She bit her lip, tried to hide it, but glanced at me from the corner of her eye. Mom? Yes? Can I go to the library tomorrow? I laughed before even answering. Of course, but only if you bring back a book autographed by the Banana Split. She rolled her eyes but couldn't contain her smile. The story, it seemed, was still far from over. On Thursday, she got ready more calmly than usual. She didn't overdo the lip gloss or change clothes 3 times, but she brushed her hair carefully and put on a necklace she hadn't worn since Christmas. Her blouse was simple but printed with small cherries, and her sneakers were the cleanest she had. When she passed through the living room, she gave a look that said, "Please don't comment on anything," and I respected that. But as soon as the door closed behind her, I found myself with an idiotic smile on my face. A smile from someone who sees their daughter leave for a date with the tacit permission that that moment finally was just hers. I waited all afternoon with an anxious heart. A part of me wanted to follow her again, observe from afar, ensure that nothing went wrong. But the other part, the part that finally trusted, kept me on the couch with an open book in my lap and a cup of tea in my hands. This time, the most important chapter of our story wasn't mine. She returned shortly before dinner. She had an ice cream in her hand, one of those simple cone ones. She smiled when she saw me. No dessert reading group today? I teased. There was, but the club is exclusive, she replied, licking the ice cream and tossing her backpack in the corner. I sat next to her on the couch. How was it? She thought for a moment as if organizing her words. He cried. My eyes widened. Jonas? She nodded. He said he missed me, that he was ashamed of me, of his own mother, of everything, but that now he understands, that I wasn't the problem. She licked the ice cream again, slowly, like someone savoring not just the sweet, but the lightness of the moment. And you? I cried too, she said, lowering her gaze, but in the ice cream parlor bathroom, disguised. And now? I asked, trying not to sound anxious. She shrugged. Now we go back to what we were, or try to. There are no more secrets, just banana splits sometimes. I smiled. She leaned back on the couch, resting her head on my shoulder as she did when she was younger. We stayed in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable silence that only exists between people who understand each other even without speaking. On Saturday, we received an unexpected visit. Jonas. He came alone, holding a small box in his hands. He trembled slightly, but maintained his posture. Good afternoon, he said, nervous. Good afternoon, Jonas. Daughter's name is in her room, but I'll call her. He hesitated. It's just that, before, I wanted to give you this. He held out the small box. It was a small bracelet, with charms of books and a tiny ice cream cone hanging from the clasp. I made it myself, he explained. I saw it in a video on the internet. I wanted her to know that, that even if it's not a secret anymore, it's still special. My heart melted. It was pure, awkward, but honest. Wait a moment, I replied. I went upstairs and knocked on her bedroom door. Visitor, I announced. Who? A certain artisanal bracelet manufacturer. She jumped out of bed. Minutes later, the two of them were in the backyard, sitting in the hammock, talking. From a distance, I saw her hands touching the bracelet on her wrist, while he laughed at something she was saying. That late afternoon, I realized that it wasn't just about secrets and discoveries. It was about respect, about space, about allowing the other to grow even when everything in you screams to protect. It was about trusting in the bond that exists, even when it is tested by love stories, disappointments, and afternoons at the ice cream parlor. The bracelet shone under the setting sun. And in that shine, I saw the reflection of something that every mother fears and desires at the same time, the day when her child begins to live her own stories. And then, silently, I accepted that my daughter had just begun to write hers. The weeks passed like leaves carried by a late afternoon breeze. The heat of summer slowly gave way to the freshness of autumn, and with it came small changes that only mothers notice. The way she began to tie her hair back to study, the notes stuck on the mirror with motivational phrases, and the little bracelet of books and ice cream that she didn't take off even to sleep. Jonas came sometimes. Not as often as before, which was understandable. Sometimes he just sent messages, other times he called, and on rare occasions he appeared with a paper-folded flower or a handmade bookmark. They didn't go back to being a couple. But there was affection there, a kind of tenderness that survived disappointment and matured slowly, unhurriedly. She never said it in so many words, but you could see that that boy left a bigger impact than a simple school crush. It was on one of those Tuesday nights while we were folding clothes together on the couch that she suddenly stopped and said, "Mom, do you think I am like his mother said?" Time froze for an instant. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then continued, "That I was precocious, inappropriate, that I'm not trustworthy for a serious boy." I took a deep breath, lowering the pile of socks in my hands. "I think you're a 14-year-old girl trying to understand the world with the tools you have. I think you're curious, intense, funny, kind, and that you have a huge heart, even if you're still learning to protect it." She was quiet. "But what if others only see what they think I am? Then you show who you are, with your actions, with your way, with your truth. And if they still don't see, the problem will never be." She nodded, thoughtful. And for the first time since the end of the scented library theater, I saw sincere tears silently flowing. I pulled her into a hug. "You're not alone, daughter. Even when you want to hide things from me, even when you think I won't understand, I'll be here, always here." She didn't say anything, but squeezed my arms tightly. That night marked something subtle, a watershed. The library girl gave way to a young woman who now saw more deeply into words, gestures, intentions. And even if she didn't have answers to everything yet, she was willing to ask the right questions. The following Saturday, I left a gift box on her bed without a note. When she opened it, she found inside a miniature bookshelf, handmade, and in the middle of it, a small resin ice cream cone. It was just an ornament, but it symbolized so much. She looked at me confused. "What's it for?" "It's just to remember that the best stories don't always happen in the library." She smiled, a smile full of meaning, the kind that we keep for life. That same day, she started writing in her notebook. I don't know if it was a diary, a letter, a story, but I saw the title on the cover, Vanilla Thursdays. I never asked what she wrote there. Some stories we don't need to read to understand. Today, she's grown up. She goes to the ice cream parlor when she wants, without making excuses. She goes out with friends, actually studies in the library, and sometimes just goes to talk. She still keeps the little bracelet in her jewelry box, and